Hello, I'm Dr. Ellison, and I want to welcome you to this health empowering session. You see, my objective is to promote your number one wealth, which is your health. I have a goal to help you be healthier, feel better, look younger, and live longer even as you're aging. You see, I believe that with proper information, proper instruction, and intentional actions, you can have a healthier life. Go with me now into this session. In this session, we're going to talk about essentials for healthy living. The essential that we're going to talk about is healthy eating. Yes, you heard that right. Healthy eating. Now, what you eat is an essential to healthy living. It is one of the essential health builders that work along with the other builders. Of course, it's not the only one. If you've already engaged in some of the other sessions or modules, such as sunlight and earthing, such as what you drink. But today we're going to focus on healthy eating. Now, I got to admit, it is one of my pet peeves because I have some of these sayings that are out there. More people are killing themselves with a spoon and a fork than people who die in wars. We see in the church world, people are getting people saved in the sanctuaries and killing them in the fellowship halls. And who doesn't spend a substantial amount of their time eating? Or eating is one of the major things that we do for healthy living, all right? So we're going to be talking about healthy eating. Now, let me ask you these questions. Have you ever heard of 1 million cows dying of heart disease? What about 500,000 monkeys dying of cancer? Quarter of a million monkeys dying of a stroke, 500,000 mules dying of cancer, or 1,000 dogs dying of diabetes, or 100 elephants complaining about constipation? No, you haven't heard of these things among animals, particularly those that are in the wild. Why? Because they survive only by eating well and staying fit. Now, you could possibly hear about this happening among animals who have been caught, caged, and played with, manipulated with human tactics. Or we could say fed things like what we humans eat. Isn't that amazing? You never heard of 1 million cows dying yearly of heart disease, or 1,000 elephants going to the drugstore and saying, I need a laxative because I'm constipated. You've never heard of that. I want to ask you some questions there. Questions here on this note. Is growing old and disease synonymous? Is this the preordained norm? Is the average person born with a disease? Think about that. At the hospital in the area that you live at in this country, or wherever you're hearing this information at around the world, is the average person born with a disease? Would you say that 50% of the children born last night had heart problems? Or 75% had diabetes or diabetic complications? No. Then where, are all of these problems coming from? For the most part, they're coming from what we put in our bodies by way of what we eat. And we got to deal with that. We got to address and deal with what we eat factor. Good health is a matter of good stewardship. Please keep that in mind. Kevin Trudeau said years ago, and now we're going to get down to healthy eating, but this wisdom for wellness was part of what I had planned for you in this. Because, see, I believe that the health of our communities, our nations, a lot hinge upon what we believe, concepts that we live by on a regular basis. And if they're not good concepts, we could be killing ourselves. And as some songster said years ago, killing ourselves. I believe it was Roberta Flack made a song, Killing Me Softly. And that's what people are doing, killing themselves softly, predominantly by what they eat. He said chemicals are put in foods to make people hungrier, fatter, and addictive. I said already people are getting saved in sanctuaries and being killed in the fellowship halls. Virginia Woolf said, one cannot think well, love well, sleep well if one has not dined or eaten well. Now, my scripture for this session is Genesis chapter 1, verse 29. Then God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed. Now, you really want to pay attention to that. I've given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed, it shall be for your food. Wow, how far away we've gotten from that scripture. Now, this is the one who designed the human body, who gave us life. Here's what he says. He says, I've given you every plant that yields a seed. You got to be cautious of foods that don't have seed, because how can they reproduce themselves? And there are a lot of items like that on markets, in our supermarkets, on the markets today. Watermelon that have no seed, cucumbers that have no seed. Be very leery, watchful, or just don't do it. Don't put anything in your body that doesn't have a seed. God gave it a seed. He said, every plant yielding seed. That's on the surface of the earth. So there are a lot of them. He didn't limit you to what you could choose to eat. And every tree yielding seed, there it is again, shall be for your food. Now the quote under that is what Hippocrates, who has been declared to be the father of modern medicine. Here's what he said. And I love this statement that he made. Let food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. Wow, what a statement. Let's hear that again. Let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. Reminds me also what the famous inventor Thomas Edison said about 100 years ago. He said the doctors of the future will not interest his patients in a lot of medications. Now, I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not trying to say never go to the doctor, so don't misunderstand. I'm not here to take the place of your medical doctor. You know, I encourage you, go see your medical doctor. Know what your signs are. You know, find out what symptoms are. All right? But on the other hand, I am saying we got to be more responsible for our health. I don't believe it's right for us to just eat any old way and then go tell somebody, the doctor or the nurse, fix me. I've been doing bad for all this time. Now you just go fix me. Hippocrates said, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. I don't believe that we would need as much medicines as we're dealing with if we would get back to this concept of what the father of modern medicine told us 460 BC. Or if we would go further back to the one who designed the human body. I don't think there's anybody, I don't care whether it's a doctor, professor, or whoever, who knows more about the human body than God. He's the one who created it. He knows what is supposed to go in it. The manufacturer of the Ford dealership or the Mercedes-Benz dealership knows what kind of gas, what kind of parts are to go in that vehicle. Well, don't you think that the one who created us knows more than the created? Don't you think that God, in all his wisdom, knew what it takes for the human body to run off of? Yes. We just got to simply get back home to his wisdom, because we are eating things that we think are healthy, but they're devastating to our health. Let's move on. You see, you are what you eat. Think about that for a moment. The average American consumes over 155 pounds of sugar a year. 150 pounds of sugar. Now, we've already talked about the devastations of sugar and how it's the major culprit in heart disease, in cancers. It's a major culprit in arthritis and a whole lot of other debilitating diseases. Refined sugar. That's what I'm talking about. Sugar that has been refined. You got to be aware of anything that's been processed, refined, things taken out of it. And then these companies will come back and say, we've enriched it. Oh, you done what? Yeah, we've enriched it because we put certain things in it. Why did you have to put it in it? Does God need for us to put anything in an apple that he made? Does God need for us to put coloring in fish? Oh, yes. You can go to some of your stores, some of your supermarkets, pick up certain items. By all means, if something comes in a box, a can, a package, or simply if it has a label upon it, read that label. Because you're going to see in certain cases apples with coloring added. Now, since when does apples need coloring added to them? But it's out there. Same thing with some fish. It's out there, particularly salmon, coloring added. You mean the Creator needed mankind to add coloring to fish? Oh, come on. But then look at the next point there too. Right beside, the average American is eating 155 or over 55 pounds of sugar. We're also eating 150 pounds of GMOs. What are GMOs? GMO stands for genetically modified organisms, or food items that man has genetically tampered with, taking the genes from one animal or one species of something that exists and mixing it with another. That's a GMO. And you got to be aware of that. You got to be aware of any type of a food item that man has designed, an item that did not come out of a plant, but was developed in a plant or laboratory. You got to be aware of that. Why do you have to be aware? Again, as I've said before, if the chemical makeup of what you put in the human body does not match the chemical makeup of the human body, and that makes sense, you're going to have problems. So you got to know what you're putting in. You would not dare put gasoline in the place in your vehicle where water is designed to be housed at. You would not dare to mix gasoline and oil together because you know from that vehicle you are going to have problems. But that's what's happening with the human body. We're taking man-made products and putting them in a God-designed body. And we're wondering why high blood pressure. We're wondering why dementia, ADD, ADHD. We're wondering why lupus, MS. See, there's nothing wrong with your genes until your genes have been activated or dealt with the wrong chemicals. And this is why the healthy eating session is so dear to my heart, because we all eat. You have to eat and drink, of course, too, to sustain life. Now look there as we prepare to close this session. The average American is drinking 300 sodas a year, 20 pounds of candy, 63 dozen donuts. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody is doing it, but the statistics have revealed that the average is doing this in a year's time, eating 50 pounds of cake, cookies, and pies. And we wonder why we have obesity in this country and all of the effects that go along with it. Eating 20 gallons of ice cream coming from milk with animals that were given growth hormones, and even 12 pounds of potato chips. That's a lot of foolish foods going in a God-designed body that was designed for natural things that grow out of the ground on trees and bushes and things like I showed you in that scripture, isn't it? Look at it. And then there's no mystery why we've got the physical problems that we do have in our country and in nations around the world that take on the SAD diet. What is the SAD diet? The standard American diet, the SAD diet. Now we're going to go deeper in the next segment.